Hello and welcome back to the Do Brand You channel. I'm very excited today to be having a great conversation with Faye Hedera. Now, Faye and I are really on opposite sides of the world. I'm in New Zealand in the southern hemisphere in winter. We're going to get snow tonight, and Faye is in the northern hemisphere in the United States in Arkansas in her summertime in August. And halfway about around the world from each other. But I'm so excited, Faye, for you to be here. And so welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So one of the things that I'm excited about today is that I found out about Faye, who is living in Central Arkansas at the moment. And she's just completed a project titled The 100 Faces of Conway, I believe. And this project has really inspired me to want to figure out what is this about and why has Faye dived into such a project and what's all behind it. So we're going to get into that today. Faye is also, she's not only an artist, but a composer as well. And she is also a founding member of the Central Arkansas Collective, which is a group of professional artists who are working together to build a gallery. So that's very cool too. So Faye, let's just dive in right away. Just tell us, how did you get to Conway and how did this whole getting 100 faces start?
Well, we were living in South Florida before, and I had some health challenges, actually. This is the whole story. We would tell people we moved for work, which is true, but it's mostly because our other house had stairs, and it was difficult for me to navigate up and down the stairs some days. So we started thinking about where we could move and ended up landing in Conway because of proximity to family in Oklahoma and other things. So, but Conway was pretty much, it was kind of a random thing that we chose, and I'm so happy that we did. So,
well, that's cool. And how long have you been there?
Just a little over a year.
Okay. And so from when you started, from when you moved there, it sounded like you got into this project of 100 Faces of Conway. So what inspired that?
It really, throughout my art career, I have been inspired a lot by dealing with grief. And this particular project was following a loss. And it was the beginning of the year, and it was kind of cold and dark, and I was feeling lonely, and I was really wanting to get to know my community, like who lives here. I didn't know anybody really, and so the project started really as an inspiration. I was drinking coffee one morning, and the idea came to me. I wrote it down, and before I could get scared, I reached out to 5 people and asked, hey, can I paint your portrait? And can you tell me your story? And then can you nominate other people in the community that you know that are nice and well-loved? And from there, it really just snowballed. And the people, every single person in the project fits those criteria for sure. Very nice and very well-loved. So it was kind of just dive headfirst in and try not to let fear get the best of me. So that was the beginning of the journey for sure. So.
Wow, that's so amazing. So, like with the grief you talk about, was that from just the moving or feeling lonely from that?
Yeah, it was. But I speak a little bit about this in the book that we just released. My younger sister became pregnant, and we really wanted to move closer to be near her. And it turned out that there were some complications, and her baby unfortunately passed away shortly after he was born. So it was a shock that kind of reverberated through our family because we had never dealt with something like that before of that magnitude. And we were just all really sad. So, I wanted to find a way to heal from that and kind of process that. So the project was definitely about like, let me get to know these people in my community, but it was like, how do I deal with this tremendous loss that our family has experienced? So I'm so happy to report we're on the other side of the project, and my sister is pregnant, and she's due in November, and we are so excited. So it's been a sweet journey, to go from just feeling really sad in January, and now we're in August and we have so much to look forward to. And this project is done, and people, I think it was meaningful for a lot of the people in the project, not just for the participation aspect, but because they know other people that are in it as well. So they kind of get to share that. Somebody said it feels like a brotherhood. Like they'll see somebody they haven't met before, but they recognize them from the project, and they're like, "Hey, you're one of the 100 Faces too." So it has that feeling of camaraderie, that was kind of unexpected, but I love it. I love that people can experience that.
I just love that. What I really love is, here on this channel, it's about do brand you. It's about doing the best version of you in whatever circumstances that you find yourself in. And I know other people will find this inspiring too, that what created this project came out of grief, came out of sadness, came out of moving and feeling lonely and wondering what you can do. And I think that's really an important part of how we navigate our journey in our life, is to realize that we're not always at the top of our game. And
Yes.
What really impacted me from what you said was that you got 5 people signed up before you chickened out.
Yes. Yes. And it's funny. I look back at the portraits, I have 100 to compare to. And those first 10, I've said before, the brushstrokes are extremely tiny because I was so tense because I wanted to get the project right. I didn't want to disappoint anybody. And most of these I did not meet until the exhibition opening of the entire project. So I was scared that I wouldn't get it right. So you can see it in how I painted, but by the end, I had loosened up so much that I was singing and dancing while I was completing the final brushstrokes. So, yes, to be able to start from something like a low point and end it kind of on a high note was a really good thing for me to be able to hold and look at and say, I did this thing, for me personally, not just as an artist, but, it's been a really interesting experience.
Yeah. I mean, just what you said there about how you started with the, as an artist with the tighter brushstrokes, and then you were able to relax. I work with people as well that are, growing a YouTube channel. And I always say, you just have to start with 100 videos. You have to get them out. You just have to do that. And the thing is, you don't find your voice, you don't find that comfort level till later on. And, I mean, so inspiring that you were able to move through that, all of those doubts, the self things that tell you it's not good enough, it needs to be better. And you moved through that. Do you have, like, for people that are listening that might have their own thing that they want to do and they're being held back? I mean, is there anything that you can say to people like that?
Absolutely. And this is what worked for me, because I'll say quickly that I have a physical disability that it interferes with my fine motor skills and all of these things. But I set timers. I say, I'm going to sit down in front of this easel and I'm going to work for, it's usually about between 30 minutes and an hour. And I set that timer and I push start, and I can't do anything else. I can't scroll on my phone. I can't, get distracted. I just have to paint for that time. And then when it's up, almost always I'm so involved in the process that I keep going. But you just have to physically start, and you have to physically take action. And if it's terrible, that's okay. You've done something. You work towards your goal.
Yeah. Yeah. That is just, yeah. I mean, that's where this whole inspiration for me about, doing brand you, it's about us just taking action. And every time we come out of our comfort zone, it's like we're just inundated with all these voices, of it's not good enough, it's that. But the thing is, I love the solution that you have, and that is action. Just take some action and move forward. So, like, did you, one of the stumbling blocks I know is that you took action. So now you have something completed, but now you have to, like, put that out there to the world. You have to, like, share that. What are the struggles with that, and how did you overcome that part?
I think I was so genuinely excited about the project because I had invested so much of my own self into it
Right.
that, in spite of kind of maybe some nervousness of talking to a larger group of people about it, I was so behind it and supportive of like the idea. And I think it had a lot to do with the people that were in the project. This was not a look at me project. This was look at these amazing people that live in Conway, Arkansas. So that outward focus was tremendously helpful because I knew that it would bring joy for the people that were listening to the story I was telling because we're all connected in that way now. So I think that, yeah, just outside of self was really an important aspect of this being the success that it was because I was doing it for others. You know, it wasn't about me. So that's definitely, I would say, something that was
Gosh,
easy to.
yeah, you've really hit on a couple of things. One is I'm always told. In fact, my daughter has told me recently, make sure you do what you love,
Yes.
and if you love what you do, you'll always find the amount of energy and motivation and inspiration and innovation to carry out whatever you want to do, but to do what you love. And also, I think, you really hit on something as well. And that is, as humans, we're meant to live at our higher self, or the best version of who we are. And the best version of that is actually adding value to our people around us in the community. And again, how inspiring that you found yourself in such a low part of your life and in a place of loneliness and grief. And yet the one thing you did was to say, well, I'm going to add value to other people. And then, like, literally, I mean, that was January, it's August. Like, it's like, yeah, 8 months. It's
And
really,
yeah, so it took about 6 months to finish all the portraits. And so there's been a couple months in between of just reflection, you know. So it's been really sweet. And also, I talk a lot about how people were willing to be vulnerable because it required a certain level of trust for people to allow me to listen to and share their story and for me to paint their portrait. And because it is, after all, kind of an intimate thing when somebody is looking at your face and, for hours at a time. But people were just so kind. And I think that gave me so much hope in humanity, that there are so many good people and there's still trust. And there's, it was really, it was inspiring for me that those people were willing to do that with me.
wow. That is just amazing. I just love that. I was living in Dubai for quite a few years, and it was now a long time ago, maybe 10 years ago or something. I went to an art exhibit. It was an opening for her show, I guess, or whatever you call that for artists. And it was called A Smile of a Woman. And yeah, she painted women from many different cultures, and each one of them had a smile on it. But to this day, that's been one of the most impactful art exhibits I've ever been to. And like you say, the trust and, the connection that you get with another person through drawing and through their trust and letting you do that. That's like, in a world of AI, that is just like such humanity coming through, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, I just love that. So, I'm now going to want to just dive a little bit more. I know people that are listening are really more curious about, who you are as a person because of what you do. And so one of the questions I like to ask people is, what is your why and how do you live that? I mean, how does that portray in your life?
I would say I have a really deep connection to my past, to the people who came before me, and I'm really sensitive to the legacy that's going to follow. And through this project in particular, in a very strange way, it's connected me more deeply with my great grandmother, who I never met, But because
Wow.
I've been open about sharing my art and sharing all these stories, different family members have started sharing her art with me. She was an artist. So it makes me think a lot about what's going to come after me. So my why is definitely thinking hard about what I'm going to leave behind. And I think I'm also really in touch with impermanence and the short time that we have on earth. And so every action that I take is meaningful, and it could potentially be impactful way down the line. So I guess that's a long
Mm.
answer to saying legacy. I definitely want to create a legacy that lives beyond.
Yeah. No, I love that because I've had other conversations with people that are doing the best version of themselves. And it is this, as you speak, this journey that we're on, this connection to the past, this vision for the future. And you even go further to that to say you already see that you're not physically going to be part of that vision,
Yes.
forever, but it's
Yeah.
going to exist. And it's so powerful. Uh, what is one of the people in your life that's really been influential that has inspired you?
Definitely my grandmother, Faye. Um,
Mm.
she's the reason why I became an artist in the first place. She's the person I would call for advice and could always rely on her making me feel loved and interesting. And when she passed away, the way that I connected to her was by creating artwork. So I see threads of her in my work.
Wow.
And I, to this day, there's something just a strong pull toward, again, with the legacy, wanting to carry on what she did with her art. And and also just a desire to think of my presentation in the world as like, would this make my grandma proud? Like, so having that different perspective, definitely I draw on that quite a bit, especially when it comes to my art.
So when did you kind of realize that you were an artist and that you wanted to, continue exploring that in your life?
Yeah. So when I first started painting, it was about 6 years ago, and I started with 100 women in dresses. They were these little illustrations because I didn't know what I was doing at all. And I made this massive goal for myself, and definitely was a healing process. At the beginning, I was sad, and by the end of it, I gained so much strength and perspective. And then at the end of it, I realized I think there's something here. I think there's some kind of alchemy or something that I
Yeah.
naturally picked it up, and I had never done it before. And I was able to very quickly pick up speed and the things that I was doing. And so it just felt right. But it also was something that I had to do. There was never a time when I didn't want to paint. I didn't get sick of it, and I'm still not sick of it. A couple of people have asked me, "Oh, you just finished this huge project. I bet you never want to pick up a paintbrush again." And I'm like, "No, since since I completed the project, I've completed 2.5 paintings. Like I am still on a
Oh my
roll, and I
gosh.
want to continue. And I have my next big series all planned out in my head. I know exactly what I'm going to do. So, yeah."
Gosh, that's so cool. So, yeah, so when you talk about being an artist, you also mentioned that you have, some limitations with that. So,
Mhm.
what is that and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, so I have a neurological condition that comes and goes. It's called functional movement disorder, and it's my brain is signaling incorrectly to my nervous system. So usually in the mornings I can start fresh because I've gotten rest, and by the end of the day, I have a variety of symptoms that are painful and they prohibit me from doing normal activities. Um, so yeah, that's something that I've had to work with and had to overcome. And this project forced me to pinpoint how I can manage my time. So I think maybe that was one of my favorite things that came out of this because it gave me a tremendous confidence that I was able to complete this project in spite of being terrified that I would get really sick halfway through and had to stop or something. And, while I was physically struggling a lot of the time, I was able to move past it and just get back up again and keep going. So, yeah, in spite of that, and I'm on the other side and I can look back and hopefully be able to draw on that if I hit another low point in my health, because it waxes and wanes with time. So yeah, that was really a positive thing that came out of this as well.
That's just so inspiring, Faye, how you like, I just, that what you said about, like, I was afraid I wouldn't be able to accomplish it. And, I mean, we all have whatever limitations we have in our life. And those fears are sometimes so big that we can't actually get through them. And here, you again, you're just putting action into your words and getting through that. What I'm curious too is you seem to be able to really accomplish what you want to do. How do you deal when things don't go right and things fail or failure creeps into, or is failure a word that you like to use, or you use another word?
I mean, I think I have a pretty good growth mindset. A failure is a learning curve, essentially. If I make a mistake, then I figure out how to fix it and I'm less likely to do it in the future. But I definitely, when I have a setback, like during this project, when I was painting and my hands, I have like a dystonic where my muscles get really tight and painful. And you get really frustrated at yourself for like, why can my brain not function correctly? Why, I'm in this, I'm enjoying this, and I have to stop. And I do, I cry sometimes, like, I'm so angry. But then I get back up again. When it passes, I get back up again and I set that timer. If it's something I need to get done, I get on my phone and I set that 40-minute timer. And it makes me just push past it. And then at the end of the day, I can say, at least I tried. At least I tried.
That is so cool. So I've got all these questions for you. I'm so intrigued. But yeah, you talk about a physical, handicap a bit that prevents you from being everything that you want to be physically, and you have to deal with that. So how do you live a life that's balanced so that you can kind of maintain the best of who you are and yet overcome challenges? What is that secret that you have to living that balanced life?
Yeah, so a lot of people with chronic illness use what's called the spoon theory. I don't know if you're familiar with this.
No, not really, no.
Basically, you get really in touch with your body and your nervous system and what's going on with you, and you measure your energy units in spoons. Like today, I woke up, I think I have about 4 spoons today, so I'm going to use that to get dressed. I'm going to use that to go to work. I'm going to use that to interact with my kids. What am I going to use that 4th spoon for? And over time, you're able to really pinpoint, like get in touch with yourself and be very present. And you can measure how many spoons, like you wake up in the morning, I only have 2 spoons today. How am I going to spend that time wisely? So for me to be aware of that and to always choose to use one of those spoons for art, I think helped me measure and manage my time in spite of, those setbacks, because it has made me educate myself on what I can do and to be able to tell when I'm starting to sink a little bit and say, I'm going to take a break so I still have room for that last spoon. So I draw on that almost every day for sure.
That's so cool. I'm reading this book called Live Your Life in Crescendo, and it's really it's so inspiring, because we should never get to that point in life where we feel like we can't go on. And I love the spoon concept of finding that out. And then I love the fact that you have made a choice to say 1 spoon every day is for my art. I just love that. Wow. So you actually mentioned that you're an artist and a composer. So what does that involve?
Yeah. So I've been a musician and singer-songwriter for many years prior to becoming an artist.
Wow.
And I have composed a lot of classical music. I've recorded some of it and it's available online. But I have noticed a trend with me is that I really only write music when I'm really like in a low point. And it always brings me up. that I can kind of gauge my where my life is by the music that I create. But I love it. It's just a little bit more challenging ever since I've kind of gotten ill because musicians use so much of their brain that it's very tiring for me the way it wasn't before. So I do still write, but I can't be as prolific with it as I can with art. So I'm very thankful that I was able to find art before I became ill because I can still create, but you can stop. And with, musicians know it's the repetition and the rehearsal for hours and hours. So I definitely I dive into that from time to time still, but it's primarily art now. So.
It's primarily art, right? So we'll share the link to your website and that below in the show notes. So does that have a link to your music as well as the art?
It's on my YouTube channel. I have a link to a EP that I put out a couple of years ago. So yeah, that's stuff.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that. So yeah, as we begin to wrap up, so what's ahead? So have you had the exhibit for the 100 Faces of Conway yet? And then what is after that as well?
Okay, yeah. So we had the museum opening a week and a half ago, and it was just I consider it a smashing success because we've just filled the room with people that were so happy to be there and so excited to see each other. And everyone was seeing their portraits for the first time. So there was just this energy of excitement and anticipation. So it's going to be at the museum, the Wingate Museum here in Conway, for the next month. And then it will be dispersed into everyone's homes. And a piece that I guess we didn't really talk about was that all of the portraits, when they're sold, they'll be donated to this organization called Haven. And that's a nonprofit in this town, and they provide shelter and care for girls who've experienced trauma in the foster care system. So everything, that was another driving force behind finishing the project, was that I knew it was going to benefit beyond me again. So people just donate what they can afford, and then they get to take their portrait home at the end of the project.
That's so cool. I just love that. Yeah. It's such a human connection to community. I actually did want to ask you about that too, is, it's kind of the concept is a do brand you channel. So it's brand you, and people get the misconception that it's very focused on yourself. But in reality, we can never do the best version of ourselves until we see our own gifts and value that. It's only then that we get to see the gifts and value those around us. And what is your view on community? It's got to be quite powerful that you've arrived into a place that you hadn't lived. And the first thing is to connect with community. So what are your thoughts around community today?
First of all, I would say it's necessary for living a good life, for living well. You have to be connected to the people around you, and you have to be involved in your community. And again, it goes back to that action piece. You have to actually step outside of your own front door and know your neighbors and know the people that live around you. Because everyone's longing for that kind of connection, and it's so important. So I've learned a lot through this process, but primarily action is the key factor in just diving into the people around you and helping where you.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing with the project that you did, like when you were saying about how everybody came to the opening and then all of their faces are there. And then there's all this connection happening between the people. I mean, you created connection where there was no connection before, just by people being part of one project. I mean, incredible. Did you see any, that must have just been amazing.
It was wonderful. And it was funny because people would come up to me and say, I recognized this person from the project. And it allowed that conversation opener between different people who had never met before. They recognized their face, and they had gotten touched by their story that they were willing to share. So it did create this atmosphere of I want to know more about you. Who are you? I'm going to shake your hand because I loved your story. And I've never experienced anything like that. People taking selfies by their portrait in this museum with their families, and there were a lot of tears, and it was very much a shared experience. And I think it was just positive, and I hope people walked away from that thinking that was a great memory.
Yeah, it's just, I have something that I've said for many years. I'm going to ask you what your favorite quote is soon, but it's one that I created, and it's conversations connect and create community. It's one of the things that drives me to do these interviews that I do on my channel here on YouTube is that conversations do connect. And not only, we're having a conversation now, and I'm going to have a great day and just thinking about it. And I'm so appreciative that we've come here to have this conversation with me. But the ability in our world today to share this conversation with the world, I know that people listening will also be really inspired. And there's just so many things that you said that I'm going to go back definitely and listen a couple times. I know other people will too, about how all of this connection, the community, people touching hands, people, resonating with each other at the opening of this exhibit started 8 months ago from, a lot of fear, a lot of, grief, a lot of loneliness, and at a low point. And, how much just by opening, by you choosing action and choosing to add value to the people around you creates just an impactful change. It's just really, really inspiring. So I am going to ask you the final question now, and that is, what is your favorite quote and why is it?
Okay, I have paraphrased this in the past, but I looked it up for you so I can quote it. This is from Leonardo da Vinci. It had long since come to my attention that people of accomplishment rarely sat back and let things happen to them. They went out and happened to things. So I live by that. I live by that.
Wow. Yeah. And how does that resonate with you? Like, in what way?
Yes, it's a reminder that when I want to kind of curl up into my ball of fear, that actually the way to cure that is to get off of my sad little couch and get out in the world and interact with people and try to make a difference by taking action. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you, Faye, for coming here. These are 30 minutes. They're never long enough. So I always say we'll have to get you back on later on as you continue to do other great things. And thank you so much for opening up what you're doing to us and allowing us to have this great conversation.